Hi, welcome back to The Creator's Soul, a podcast mini-series about the creative process and its application in every area of your life. I'm your co-host, Elizabeth, a creative producer and director based in New York City.
And I'm HeyJune, an energy and leadership coach with a background in Wall Street and New York City tech startup. In today's episode, we're going to talk about what to do when inspiration strikes and how to trust that you have the skills to deliver on that inspiration, or else that idea wouldn't have found you in the first place. Something that I often remind my students is that Billie Jean by Michael Jackson did not take long for him to write at all. He talks about how he was almost like struck by a lightning bolt, which is analogous to the magician card in tarot. So he just says that he literally got the idea, went to the studio and like cranked it out in a couple of hours, which is crazy, right? So that's how inspiration works. It just snatches you up. So my question to you is, was there ever a time when that happened to you? And how are you able to tell if it was just wishful thinking versus real inspiration versus intuition?
Yeah, that lightning bolt moment is absolutely real. I think a lot of times when we talk about creativity, that's what people expect. They expect that lightning bolt moment where it all is super clear. It's all a very fluid process of getting it down on the page or, getting it out of your mind. And I think there's something really special about it because it really there's a lot of chaos that happens with the creative process, but kind of bringing that to a place where you have a clear vision of what that chaos needs to look like or how it's going to be structured or how it meets like your particular skills or the skills of your network is a really powerful moment. And I think it's something that can happen regularly for people. One of the things for me that I've noticed are that these moments are sometimes major, and then like sometimes they're more like little revelations throughout a day. So I would say this happens to me every day in some capacity. Part of why I think I'm able to have these moments every day is because I have developed habits and practices to create space. Really, doing nothing, mentally doing nothing, is one of those ways that I've found to have the most regular lightning bolt moments. When you are just receiving and open to ideas and thoughts or that inspiration to hit you, that's when it happens. It's not like 100% the formula, but that is absolutely something that I have incorporated into my life over the last couple of years and have noticed that the intuition on certain people or ideas has grown, has become more concrete.
Yeah.
In terms of like, sometimes I'll give an example. Sometimes I'm like, oh, um, I really want to write this poem. I want to write a poem. And the poem, I use poetry a lot to help kind of summarize concepts or ideas. And so poetry is something I do pretty regularly. And I wanted to write a poem. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to write a poem about. So I just kind of sat there for a moment, and this lightning bolt moment happened, where I had a very clear image of this relationship dynamic that I was a part of. And the image was these shards, and they were beautiful. There's like beautiful glass shards. And so that was the inspiration for my poem, was this visual of shards of glass,
Yeah.
and the thought of tenderness around these sharp objects, which is like sounds kind of abstract, but the lightning bolt moment came with this very strong visual image and the emotion behind it, the tenderness behind it. And then from there, I was able to take those feelings and thoughts and write it into a poem. Yeah, I feel like that's like a moment like that just kind of happened because I showed up. I was like, I want to write a poem. And then because I was receptive, there was that ability to receive that image, see it, then like kind of follow it around until I got the energy or the emotion behind it.
Yeah,
And then it became a poem.
that's really cool. So I okay, so what that reminds me a little bit is like in our previous episode, we were talking about the infinite potential, how everything just starts out as like a dream, right? Like one giant vision, and we're not quite sure how it's going to distill down into reality and how it's going to manifest exactly. But if you really think about it, once reality starts setting in, you have to kind of course correct your vision along the way, right? So your story kind of tells me that, okay, you probably had a vision for this relationship, which I don't even know like the full context of it, but it sounds to me like there was a vision initially, and then the reality set in, and then there was a disconnect between them, and somehow that manifested as like a lightning bolt for you. So this is going to sound really abstract, but my takeaway from that is like oftentimes, when we feel like we've kind of strayed from our vision, it wasn't a real straying. Maybe that had to happen so that we're inspired to go down a different path or to create something new. um, which just goes to show you like all shades of human emotion is a vessel for something. It's useful for something,
Mhm.
catalyst to create some kind of change. So it's really cool that you were able to take that moment and interpret it as a lightning bolt rather than, oh my God, this sucks, I'm just gonna sit on the couch and like cry about it. Or the flip, just laugh about it, right? Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I was just gonna say, I feel like a lot of times I didn't realize that these lightning bolt moments were so like available to me by acknowledging my everyday experiences.
Yeah.
Another great example of these lightning bolt moments for me is when I love people watching. I will caveat this with that living in New York City, I get to people watch a lot.
Hmm.
And I really find so much joy out of watching people do things, you
Yeah.
know? Um, but those are lightning bolt moments for me sometimes.
But I do think that you mentioning those skills just reminds me because you're enormously productive, like creatively. Like you're working on a short, a feature length, and not to mention like other these brand deals that you're working on. But there's like, as far as I'm concerned, there's like multiple projects that you are juggling. And I think we all have 24 hours in a day. So why is it that some of us are able to like squeeze in more than others? And I do think it comes down to that practice, like that mindfulness practice and that practice of choice that you're making. Um, so now I want to know, you're also managing teams, creative teams, and when you get okay, so you have this creative habit or the meditative habit, and then you get hit with a lightning bolt, and you're like, all right, I'm going to go and execute, and I need to assemble a team, and I need to manage these team members to execute on this lightning bolt together. Could you describe that a little bit? Because I believe that when people come together, it creates an electromagnetic field. I believe that all of our bodies have different portals, and when we come together, it activates and opens up like the a dormant portal in the other person's body. I'm like really big on this. It's also been like proven in like human design. So I'm sure like when you bring your idea or your vision to your team, you're activating something in them and they're activating something in you. This is where like you got to be real with yourself, right? Because we all have dreams, but we don't always have all the skills. That's why we need each other.
Mhm.
So describe to me that process of like does your gut or your intuition guide you as far as like, okay, I feel like this person can activate this part of the project, or I feel like I'm not quite sure how to do this, but I feel like this person can figure it out. Like how do you go about conveying that and like sussing that out?
Yeah. I absolutely agree that people together have different energies
Mhm.
depending on the combination of who they are. Um, I also feel like a lot of people think I'm full of shit, but I can absolutely feel people's energy in the room, and it makes me. I can be extremely empathetic to the point where like I'll take it on, which is something
Mm,
I've had to learn as a leader not to allow or to like know how to continue to be empathetic, feel with other people, but not let that drain my energy. Um, so I think when I'm sensing in a group or when I have that lightning bolt and I'm like, hey, I that lightning bolt also comes with a person's name or a
Oh, wow.
image of them.
Wow.
Because sometimes that happens. I'll be like, okay, well, let me see what they're up to. And I'll just like reach out and see what's happening for them. I think sometimes there's an aspect of discernment in the team building process that involves knowing personalities, knowing where people are in their lives. That energy component is something that is a big component of knowing the timing for that person to be a part of the project.
Yeah.
Um, so when I'm thinking about bringing together a team, I really think about how that person goes about their day to day, how what I know about them in that capacity. I look at their skills, like what are those like things that they've developed and worked on and are continuing to grow in. And then I'll also think about timing and just like, where are they in their life? And is this a good time to have them join a project like this?
So would you call that like sublightning? Like you have your
Yeah.
overall lightning and then like these like hits that you get about people, they're sublightnings.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I'll add this too, because like there's sometimes we'll get people all together in a project. And then once they're all together, they'll all have sub lightnings. And then I will
Mhm.
have another sub lightning because I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Or, oh, this is like an interesting aspect of this project. Maybe we should explore that a little bit more. But the people together created that vessel for
Absolutely.
the chaos of the potential to be made concrete through their skills. They saw that they saw the potential and then they were like, "Oh, here's how we can do it." Or have we thought about this? And to me, that is so rewarding and exciting. I get so excited. Like that is like just so thrilling to watch people bounce off of each other and like really amplify the idea and
Yeah.
take that somewhere.
Yeah, that resonates with me because I truly believe that an idea won't find you unless you can do it. And if you can't do it, you have the resources and the people to do it with.
Mhm.
So when you
Yeah.
get an idea, don't be like, "Oh, I can't do that." Or like just wave it off, right?
Yeah. I think a huge part of my skill set is asking why, how, and following through on the discovery process.
Mhm.
And I think that is part of the joy of figuring out the next step with the idea. Because to be perfectly honest, there's a lot of times where my skill set, in terms of like my particular skills, don't necessarily align with the idea.
Mhm.
But what I will receive is like, oh, but we'll need this kind of person and this person, and I'll see what what the potential is and like who needs to be a part of it.
Mhm.
So part of like what I have to do, and I think what a lot of us have to do, because this is something I get asked a lot, and I'm gonna expand on this because people ask me, how are you doing so many things, or how do you
Mhm.
juggle all of these different projects that you're a part of? And I say I really try to prioritize based off of what timing is right,
Mhm.
what people are involved,
Mhm.
and then also like where I feel my skill set's best going to fit.
Bingo. Yeah. That's a really good framework.
Yeah, and then if I have things that I just don't know what to do with, I'll kind of put a pin in that, know that it's there, and oftentimes I will have a lightning bolt moment, another one, sometimes months later, sometimes years later,
Right.
where I'll meet somebody who can do that thing with me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just because it's not right now doesn't mean it's never going to happen.
I completely resonate with that. I completely resonate with that because the timing thing especially. Well, the skills can always be there, but like the world may not have the correct framework or the vessel to for the skill to shine.
Mhm.
So for me, that was totally tarot and totally content. So content plus tarot. So um I always wanted to go into the film industry. As you know, that's we talked about this last time. But at the same time, I'm an intuitive and I've been practicing tarot for a very long
Mhm.
time. And I thought about making tarot content and I did here and there, but I thought it was silly. Didn't think anyone would see it. Um, and then TikTok came along in 2020. And yes, there had been other content platforms such as YouTube and Instagram, but it didn't have the kind of algorithm that TikTok had. So when I started making, I think literally my 10th, maybe my seventh piece of content on TikTok went crazy viral. It was a tarot content. But people often see that and go like, "Oh, that was overnight." It wasn't overnight. That was after like almost like 10 years. So 10 years of practicing tarot and 10 years of like dabbling with content and then the timing portion of like the platform coming along that like really just carried it. But you're right. Like I had that lightning bolt years ago of like there's something here. I didn't compromise on it and I just kept on working at it until the timing was right.
Mm.
So I completely agree with that. It has to be that trifecta.
Yeah, I that is a great example because I think a lot of times, myself included, I've gotten very frustrated or felt like, oh, I'm just having stupid ideas again, or like I'll like kind of close off my mind from receiving anything because I'm like, well, I can't do that, or that's stupid, like, or like, why am I even thinking that this is possible? And that has not led to the potential for anything to happen because I'm just not paying attention. I'm not aware of opportunities that are passing right in front of me. I'm not willing to try.
Hmm.
Or if I am trying, maybe I'm trying in a very safe way that
Yeah.
isn't fully utilizing my skills or the skills in the network that I have.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an aspect of like, if it rings true to you, if that lightning bolt, that idea, that intuition that you have rings true to you, and you are feeling a lot of joy over it, if it's bringing you joy, take the time to work at it,
Hmm.
do something with it, try it out in a couple different ways, find those people
Hmm.
in your life. And if it takes 10 years, if it's an overnight success, cool. But know that it's not something that is wrong or not worth giving attention to, um, necessarily right away. Like, I think over time you might realize, hey, like, actually, I'm really interested in this aspect of that particular idea, and I'm going to refine it down a little bit more and just pursue that. And that's okay.
You know what this makes me think about? It makes me think about this is the reason why this is the exact moment when people start to compromise on their infinite potential.
Hmm.
Right? Like everyone starts out with some kind of a dream and the lightning hits and then they start to execute and they're like, "Oh wait, turns out I have to wait a lot," or I don't know when it's going to pay off. And I don't want to like waste 5 years to see this take off or whatever, or it might I think people get caught up in the doubt and then they start to be like, "Okay, maybe I should just go do this thing that my mom told me to do anyway."
Yes. Yes.
Maybe,
And I think,
right? Yeah.
yeah, I was, I was just going to say, I was like, I think there's something to planning your life and your well-being in such a way that you can be receptive to these things that come your way, but that also planning your life in a way that you have longevity. Concretely, I think that looks like having a budget,
Mhm.
understanding your finances as a person, because that, in my perspective, has derailed many good ideas.
Mm.
I think it also matters of who you spend a lot of time with. Like,
Mhm.
building a life with people that will grow with you, be dynamic with you, evolve with you, is also just as important as having a financial plan
Yeah.
to, um, keep growing and keep putting the time into those ideas and those things that you're really passionate about.
Wait, so just to clarify, you mean you need the budget and the people. So like relational and financial security to honor your lightning bolt. Is that
Yes.
yeah, okay.
I think that's what allows you to be patient. Not
I
that you can't
completely
just
agree.
be patient, but I think realistically, concrete things in your life that will help create that space, those are two areas that make a very profound impact. Speaking from my personal self, but also the people in my life who have gone the distance on their
Yeah.
projects or their
Yeah.
ideas.
I completely agree with that. I mean, I didn't even think about that, but that's true. It kind of goes back to like that sublightning.
Mhm.
Even if they're not directly working for you or with you, yeah, if it's your partner or even your roommate and they're not supportive, then yeah, that could really just kind of derail you completely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've seen this with a lot of the coaching that you've done where maybe people have a circumstance in their life that's really derailing their ability to see their true potential.
Yeah, I teach a couple of different classes, but this specific scenario that manifests a lot is in my business workshops
Mm.
where well and my like because I also work with a lot of college students. It's the same thing with them too. They're majoring in one thing because they want to be practical, and that's fine. Like I believe in being practical. But it gets harder if you're signing up for like med school or like law school. And the expectations and the classes and the tests are just like so rigorous that
Mm.
even if you do have a side hustle, you can't devote there comes a point where it's like you're not only aiming for practicality, you're aiming for like extreme level of success in one area that's like extremely taxing that you can't even pursue this other lightning bolts that you had.
Yeah.
So what I and that's always a struggle, right? I actually think in my coaching I struggle with that a lot. Like how to how to help someone maintain that budget aspect you talked about versus honor the lightning. I think balancing the two is actually pretty challenging,
Yes,
right?
I
This is
agree.
a lot of the trappings of artists too. Like I think a lot of influencers and content creators are complaining right now. They're like, I'm a creative person. I want to make more creative shit, but I got to do this brand deal who's giving me very strict parameters and I have to use these buzzwords and do these transitions I don't care about at all, but I have to because I make the money. So I think that there's a lot of traps when you start to pursue your lightning bolt because to your point, like you want to get your relationships right, you want to get your budget right, but you also want to get your creative direction right. And the dance between that all three
Mm.
is where it gets really messy.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is. I feel like I don't know. I actually don't think I know anyone who is perfect all the time with that dance.
Yeah.
I know a couple good examples of a balancing it well, but I think there are times where, you need a certain boost in cash and you're going to compromise on something else.
Yeah.
Or in a relationship that is going to get strained because you are pursuing your creative path and you have to, work a couple extra jobs in order to put budget behind that creative
Yeah.
endeavor. But I think part of what we're talking about here is this presence and awareness and receptivity because those lightning bolts happen to inform that balance or that dance too.
Yeah.
It's I have experienced moments where it's like, man, you should not be doing that. Stop
Mhm.
that. Like, there's usually an emotional component. I think emotions are something that we underrate a lot in our conversations with each other.
Yeah.
But to be able to feel, if you're feeling anxious or unsettled, or I always like talk about it like a high vibration. Think
Mhm.
about like when you take a eating utensil or something and you like hold the end of it on the counter and then you like hit the end of the fork with the spoon and it like does that vibration. Like if
Mhm.
there's like that kind of like feeling of anxious and like visceral response. And I think paying attention to that, you can oftentimes see that you are maybe not paying attention to a lightning bolt or not receiving a lightning bolt
Hmm.
that you need to receive to make the next best decision or to keep things in balance.
I um I completely resonate with that. It's almost like the lightning bolt is too overwhelming and you don't even know where to begin. And then that's what I do all the time. Like a billion ideas and I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't know I'm going to get all this done." And I just end up doing something completely different to distract myself.
Yeah. You distract yourself, or you just kind of spiral out of balance between relationships, money, and your creative idea because
Yeah.
you're just not like because you're distracting yourself, you're just not receiving the next lightning bolt that you need to take it further or have a clear direction on what you need to do next.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's okay to make a mess, completely fine to make a mess. But I think what we're talking about here is how do I remain receptive to the chaos of creativity and the chaos of potential, and then turn that into something that I can execute or I can be a tool and an instrument to bring others together to make that happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. I completely resonate with all of that, and I think that, the internet, as great as it is, it's really sort of it's increased the amount of lightning bolt, but it's also increased the amount of distraction,
Hmm.
and I think it's all forcing us to level up. Like, I was just talking to a friend about this, I think we're all getting, like an upgrade, almost like a software upgrade.
Mm.
You know, the juggling act of the 3 isn't ever gonna go away, but the way we process information, the way we make choices, the speed of that will increase because we're up leveling. So I think that the spiritual skill required to be discerning of the lightning information that's coming in, right? I feel like that is going to be a very necessary skill moving forward. Like in your own life, like how quickly can you assess what's true versus not and then execute on it?
Hmm. I am an extremely optimistic person. So, one of the struggles that I have is overcommitting.
Mm,
I want to give, I want to be 100 different people, but I'm one with a lot of energy. But I still have to really watch that I don't overcommit because I am very inspired by the things around me and I see things. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should try that. There's, like you said, the internet's full of really like interesting people and cool ideas. But I think in terms of discerning what is the next best step for me, I often will ask, am I bored?
uh-huh.
I'll ask that because uh, if the answer is I am bored, it might mean that I'm not investing the work into taking that next step with the idea and that I have, or the viable idea that I have. I might be procrastinating because I'm
Mm,
feeling scared about the outcome with that next step, or feel like maybe I'm doubting my skill. And that usually manifests as boredom for me.
mhm,
So I'll ask, am I bored? Um, and then I'll also ask, am I happy?
mhm,
Because I think a lot of the things that are right for us also bring a lot of joy and a
mhm,
lot of excitement and awe over what's
mhm.
happening.
Yeah,
Um, I think about it within relationships.
mhm,
When I meet somebody who really connects with me, there's a little bit of awe over that,
mhm,
where it's like, wow, that is so cool that we can like follow each other's train of thoughts so closely, and that we have insight into each other's way of thinking already. I especially get that feeling of awe when I first met someone where like, wow, they are just really cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, so yeah, I think those are two questions that I ask when I'm discerning, is that lightning bolt something maybe to notice, but say no, thank you,
Mm-hmm.
or not right now.
Right.
Because there's definitely the ability to overcommit or to be distracted
Right.
by too many pursuits.
Right. Yeah. I think the dating analogy is spot on because again, like going back to the infinite potential, like people start out sharing a vision.
Hmm.
It's very easy to get excited about a vision to a point where you almost take it on as a part of your own,
Hmm.
even if it's not your vision. And especially in dating, like I think that a lot of people, you can meet somebody for 30 minutes and go like, wow, I can really see a future with this person. But turns out they could have a totally different vision from you. But they like your energy and they like being around you. So they might exhibit qualities almost as if they might exhibit like the signs of a lightning bolt.
Hmm.
They might almost like mimic your lightning bolt, right? Like I think that's like what we call like the dark triad, right? Like there's a
Mm.
study that was done to show why young women fall for like guys who exhibit the dark triad like traits, narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellism.
Yeah.
It's because they're exhibiting all these things that on the surface look like what the young girl wants, but really they don't have it to back it up. But the young girl's like, or the young woman's like lightning bolt is like going off, right? She's like, well, if he did this and or did that, then like we can build this together, right? So I think that that's kind of like what you're describing as far as like discerning. It's like, yeah, like is it a true lightning bolt or is it mimicry coming from someone else or just like something within you being triggered?
You have this amazing interaction with somebody, and they completely sell you on who they are.
Yeah.
And that could be this could be a truthful person. This could be somebody who is like the same person no matter who they're with. They don't have any ulterior motives. They're really thinking about you as a person, and it's a great connection. However, I think that over time, again, with time, I think
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
see what is the truth.
Yeah.
So, in terms of discerning, are these people as great as I think they are, as I feel they are? And this is something that I like people who are decades older than me have said, like, it's okay, give it time. I hate that
Uh-huh.
phrase,
Uh-huh.
but it's so true because you
Right.
really see who these people are over time.
Right. Right.
Um, And I think like part of it, there's a discerning process, like for years, maybe, as you're getting to know somebody.
Right. Right. That's a really good point. And it carries over to group projects too and like hiring. You hire someone based on their potential.
Hmm.
Turns out they don't got it. And the other way around, you sign up for a job, turns out it's not what they said.
Yeah.
So I think this just is like across the board in every area of life. Um
Yeah. I want to throw in here too, where we talked about, people within that dark triad and personality traits associated with that. I think we all have things that we pretend, or like
yeah,
parts
for
of our
sure.
personality or self that we project or like try to like put out there so we feel accepted or acceptable to people, and also like the person that we want to be. It's kind of like the fake it till you make it
Yeah.
phrase. But I think that's a challenge for all of us in terms of our creating the life that we want, and then creating outcomes that we want, whether that's things that you're achieving in your career or certain relationship dynamics.
Right.
I think there's an aspect of being present and checking in and noticing how authentic you're being about that, or if there's ulterior motives behind actions. Um, Not that ulterior motives could be bad, but I think it's a challenge to consistently be your true self and honest with your strengths and weaknesses, um, and then act accordingly.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'd be lying if I told you that, I'd be lying if I said I don't exhibit those dark triad qualities myself from time to time. I think it's a survival skill
Yeah.
to a certain degree, right? I just think that it's important to check yourself when you realize that you might be sabotaging someone else's infinite potential because your own selfish needs and interests can't take a back seat.
Mm. You're
Which is a
using them.
whole yeah, and that's a whole another level of awareness.
Yeah.
So, I guess this makes me want to ask you one final question, which is, do you think authenticity and truth and self-awareness is a huge component of the lightning bolt?
Yes. I think the more honest you are with yourself, the more revolutionary those lightning bolts can become,
Mhm.
and more often that they will come to you.
Mhm.
I think when we are pretending and not being truthful with ourselves about our motives, about our why, to go back to episode 1, we suffocate or snuff out or block these lightning bolts full power, or even being, we block them from being even felt at all. It's kind of going back to what I said about how it's really hard sometimes just to sit and like wait for somebody to show up. If you're waiting for them for dinner or something that you're doing together,
Yeah.
it's hard to not try to distract yourself from the
Yeah.
things that you're feeling and your own true self. um, it can be a scary process to sit with yourself, but I think the more you practice that and the more you do it, the more you open yourself up to this radiant force that just will hit you sometimes, and you'll be able to sense when these intuitive thoughts and these creative moments happen, and be able to take action and understand what they mean for you. I encourage everyone listening to, if you're questioning like where you are in the process, you know, maybe just take some time to really sit with yourself without having anything to do. You can
Mhm.
still be in public, but don't make a plan for anything to occupy your brain or your thoughts. See what comes up,
Right.
because a lot of times that's where the truth of where you are as a person will be settling, or you'll be feeling it tossed around. And that's a really great place to start, and it's a way to invite creativity and that lightning bolt into your life.
Yeah. Amen. Completely agree to that.
Do you have any moments, hey June, where you have felt that lightning bolt for you?
Yeah. Uh, 100%. I've kinda like what you were saying earlier, I have a lot of mini lightning bolts too.
Hmm.
For me, they usually manifest as, like, breakthroughs in the things that I'm actually working on. I feel like I can recognize when something's a big idea. I can recognize when I'm onto something, when I feel like something's gonna be when something has, like, credence or has future potential. So that part I have nailed down, but it's the mini lightning bolts that I'm still trying to fine tune. How to unblock myself, in a project that I'm working on instead of just being like, "Oh, this is too hard," and, like, pushing it away, and even interpersonal, like, relational lightning bolts. Like, if someone's frustrating or if I feel like I'm not getting through to someone, it's very tempting to be like, "Okay, well, they just don't get it," and, like, abandon that relationship, right? But I have to stick to the vision of like, okay, I'm working with this person for a reason, or I'm with this person for a reason. And clearly, I am unearthing my truth along the way as I interact with this person. I'm like literally running into like, okay, what are my boundaries? What are my needs? What are my limitations and skills? So instead of like running away from that, like confronting it and allowing that person to unlock kind of like the portal thing we're talking about, right? Like allowing them to unlock aspects of me that I didn't even know that existed. And unlocking that aspect of me means me going deeper and following in that path of like what the lightning bolt was.
Hmm.
which then brings me closer to that initial big vision. So I think I'm really good at like starting things. I'm also pretty good at wrapping up things, but it's like the in between that I'm like very messy about.
Does that make you feel uncomfortable that you do feel like you're making a mess?
Oh, yeah, all the time. And I actually am not really good about carving out that space that you talked about, that clear-headed space. I don't think this is probably gonna be shocking to a lot of people because of what I do, but I don't have a practice like that. Like, yes, like I talk about, white light meditation. I talk about, sit out in your garden and like listen to binaural beats. I talk about this a lot. I preach it. However, in reality, how much do I practice it? Not a lot. But I physically feel the difference when I do it. So I'm trying to embody it more. And especially when it comes to relational light bolt, like those aha moments, with a partner, with a friend, or with a family. I did notice that the more I just like took a moment to take a step back and like not react and just give it space, when like I find like 5 or 10 minutes later, I'd be like, okay, that was totally not me, or like was a misunderstanding, like I was overthinking, like those answers start like percolating through. So, I think the interpersonal version of giving yourself space is just to be mindful of, am I reacting or am I responding?
Mm. I feel like there's that correlation too with between reacting and responding, that responding is that intuitive awareness. There's an understanding with the action that's being taken.
100%.
Well, I so value our conversations, HeyJune, and thank you so much to everyone listening for joining us. We hope that you took something away from this conversation, and that you will continue to be prosperous and grow and have many, many lightning bolts. Um, so thank you for joining, and we'll see you for the next episode.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for another amazing conversation, and I will catch you guys next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Creator Soul, a podcast mini-series presented by Phaedrus and Potter Productions. We hope you join us for the rest of the series and discover something that will help you meet your fullest creative potential.